Israeli-Palestinian conflict, day 8. Seems like it's been going on for a lot longer than that, doesn't it? Some would say generations, maybe even 1,000 years, 2,000 years. It brings us to a very important question. Why? Why is this conflict happening? How long has it really been going on? Who started it? Was it really the Israelis, Palestinians? Or is there a third party out there someplace that just exasperated the problems between the two nations and made it worse? That's why we're here today. You know, every time that we turn on the TV, we want information. We're going to our news sources, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and all we get are body counts. This many Palestinians have been killed. This many IDF have been wounded. This many children have been beheaded. This many women have been raped. Why? Is it to just stoke emotion? Why don't they tell us why this is happening? Why are they fighting? What caused this fighting? Is it something to do with contemporary politics? Or is it something ancient that none of us really know about? That's why we're here. We're here for the truth. We're going to look for the reason why this is going on. How long has it been going on? Who started it? Why was it started? So if you want to learn something about the Middle East today, stick around, because that's what we're doing. Grab your popcorn, take some notes, and who knows, when we're all done, you may actually look at the Middle East in a completely different light. Let's go. 66 AD, in a small Roman province on the coast of the Mediterranean, Israel. A band of Jewish rebels rise up against the Roman Empire, and in doing so, awaken the wrath of the Roman military. Roman legions pillaging and burning and killing everything in their path all throughout Jerusalem, to finish destroying the Second Temple. How is that possible? I thought the land was called Palestine. Well, you're wrong. Palestine didn't exist. Not yet, at least. How do I know this? Well, take a look over here. This map. This is a historical depiction of the kingdoms of the current Palestine, as we know, as they were 2,000 years ago. Very simple. To the north, you have Lebanon. South, Israel and Judah. And to the southwest, land of the Philistines. There's nothing on this map that depicts anything stating Palestine. So where did the name come from? Simple. About 60-some years later, another uprising occurred in the area. Israel, Judah, and some of the other small Arabic nations. The current emperor at the time, the contemporary emperor at the time, Emperor Hadrian, was tired of it. Dealing with the uprisings, sending in his troops to quell them. He looked at the area as ungovernable. And so finally he got fed up. He sent in everything, laid waste to all of it, except for one place, the land of the Philistines. Reason being is the Philistines were no fans of the Jews. They were ancient enemies. They went back way back prior to the New Testament and maybe to the beginning of the Old. Pretty much back to written history. The Philistines and the Jewish nations have been at each other's throats for all time, for all of our time. So when Hadrian finally laid waste to what is Israel and Judah, he wanted to further insult them. So what he did is, for history's sake, no more will there be a kingdom of Judah or Israel. The land will now be called Palestine, after the ancient enemy of the Jewish people. That is where the term Palestine came from. So, as we know, in time, the Roman Empire fell. And just like all other empires, there's always going to be another one there to come up in its place. And as we get into that era, we know that several Muslim empires have come and gone, all the way through to the Ottoman Empire just prior to World War I. Its people of Palestine, all of them, have basically been under the boot of some empire for all of their existence. Prior to the term Palestine, or even through, that is basically the imagining or the creation of Palestine. All of these people in that area have all known oppression. They've always been under the boot of someone bigger, up until World War I. What does it have to do with anything? Well, a lot. Because of the actions that took place in World War I, started off what we have to deal with now today. And there are some parties involved that some of you may be surprised, and others maybe not. So the people of Palestine have been under the oppression of one emperor or another for their entire existence. Now, I'm not talking about Palestine as we see today. That's not Palestine. Palestine is that original map that I showed you, consisting of Lebanon, Israel, Judah, and the land of the Philistines, and those other small Arabic kingdoms. That is Palestine, not what you see on TV. Now, how does World War I play into this? It's major. It is probably the biggest event in that land's history to make it what it is today, and why it is the way it is today. Now, during World War I, all right, just prior, anti-Semitism was already on the rise in Europe and in Russia due to Russia's own civil war. In Europe, everyone looked at the Jewish community as dirty, sneaky, thieves, undesirable. So what the Jewish community did is they petitioned the governments of France and Britain. We need a solution. People here don't want us here. We want to go someplace else where we can have our own country. Now, in the Jewish community, there was a Zionist. I don't remember his name, but came up with a solution of a new Israel, a new Jerusalem. So the British and French empires or governments were saying that the only way that this can happen is if we win this great war that's about to happen. And the Jews were stuck. They had no place to go. Now, mind you, there were already small pockets of Jewish settlements in the Holy Land already. We're talking native Jews already in the area. So you can't say that there were no Jews in the land of Palestine prior to a certain date. They've always been there. Okay, so back to World War I. Now, when it came to World War I, the British and French knew they could not beat the Austro-German Empire by themselves. They just didn't have the capability. And what made it harder is you had the Ottoman Empire, who was part of the Central Alliance. Now, the British were trying to figure out, well, how do we win this war? We can't. The only way we can do it is we have to bring the Americans in. And here in America, we wanted nothing to do with it. Well, nothing to do with it. So the British had to find another way. And they did. They knew that the Ottomans actually controlled a region of the Middle East that was known traditionally for uprisings against its oppressors. So what the British did is they sent envoys to Palestine, to all the small Arabic kingdoms that were in the area and said, hey, you join us in our fight against the Central Powers, and if we win, we will grant you freedom. You will be a federation of free Arab nations. Join us. We'll give you money, we'll give you weapons, and we'll help you. So, of course, the oppressed are like, if you're going to offer me freedom, if I stand up to my oppressor and you can help me, I'm going to do it. So these small Arab communities and small Arab nations stood up against the Ottomans. The Ottomans had to make a choice. They knew if they were aligned with the Austro-Germans against the Allied powers, they would win. But with all of these uprisings in a traditional region that is known for uprisings, was violent enough, it was going to pull the Ottoman forces away from the front. And it did. The Ottomans had to go back and deal with these uprisings. And in doing so, it took them out of the fight. It delayed the war long enough to get the Americans involved. And once the Americans joined in Europe, it gave the British and the French enough to defeat the Austro-German Empire. Once that happened, the Ottomans were already collapsing from within. They had no way to maintain their borders, no way to maintain their small little city-states or their small countries that they were controlling. City-states. I was going way back for that one. But anyway, they couldn't control it. So once the Americans bowed out, we went back home. The French and the British, they just started carving up, Asia Minor, the Middle East, and, Western Asia. So what happens is the League of Nations is formed. And during this formation, they have the realization of the European Jews that now that we have control of the Middle East, we can actually set up the Jewish nation. We can actually take this idea, the Zionist idea, and make it happen. So what started happening over the next handful of years, from 1918 through the 1930s, European Jews started buying up land in Palestine around most of the old and original Jewish settlements. Now, a lot of the Arab nations and Arab villages didn't like this and were asking, please don't do this. We don't want these people. But there are other Arabs in the area that were like, they're buying the land. They're offering good money, and there are other Arabs making money on the sales. So with the British in control, which of this right here, this is called the British Mandate, which began just after World War I, all the way through the mid-1930s. Now, so what happens is the British are offering protection to the European Jews that are migrating from Europe into the Holy Land and protecting them from the Arabic villages in other minor kingdoms. Okay? So what happens is the population just swells with European Jews. Okay? They have their country. The League of Nations says we now have our Jewish land, land of the Jews, Israel. Israel is going to be reborn. But they can't do it yet because they're still trying to fulfill the promises they made to the small Arab nations. Now, what happens is in Palestine, okay, as the whole area is labeled as Palestine, a partition is created, which is the British Mandate. And as you can see here on the map, everything is laid out. Britain is in control of all of that. Now, the mandate separates areas. The Golan Heights the West Bank, and today we know as Gaza. That is given to Palestinians. Okay? Now, once this happens and the Jewish population begins to grow even bigger, we get into the late 1920s. Now, the Arab nations and the Palestinians are saying, stop. We don't want this. You're giving our land to, the Jewish community. These Jews, we don't want them here. They don't belong here. They're not Palestinian. Well, see, that's where even they are wrong. The Jews and the Palestinians, today's Palestinians, they're the same people. They're all from the same land. They're all from the same region. You know what separates them? One thing: religion. Religion, and these particular groups of Jews were not native to the original Israel. They're immigrants from Europe. They're Western Jews. And the biggest thing is they're bringing their Western values into a very traditional, area where tradition and old ways are what's important. So since the British and the French are starting to lose control, they have a solution. In 1929, they bring the Arab nations together, they bring the Palestinians in, and they bring the Jews in. They're like, here, how about a two-state solution? We have a nation of Israel, and we have Palestine. The Jewish settlers accept. They accept the offer. Palestinians reject it. That is the start of it. Today, there are cries for a two-state solution all over the world. When 100 years ago, a two-state solution was actually offered, and it was rejected by the Palestinians. Now, as the Jewish population began to grow even further and greater, we get into the 30s. Still under British control. And then sometime in 1934, 34, in Germany, a new man takes control of Germany. I think his name was Adolf, something like that. Some bad artist or whatever. Who knows? Heard he was a hack, but with him taking over, anti-Semitism, of course, was tenfold at the time. So just prior to World War II, more European Jews were fleeing to the Holy Land. And as this was happening, the World War II drumbeats were getting louder and louder. Britain had to make a choice: leave the mandate and prepare for war again, or stay there and lose. So in 1937, the British evacuated Palestine. And what that did is it created a vacuum. There was no governance. All you had was the small independent Arab nations who were promised freedom, but were still in a way under British control. So what happens? There's about 500,000 Jews in Israel before Israel became a nation. Again, the Arabs decided to form their own league, the Arab League. And what they did is, once the British decided to back out and retreat back home to prepare for World War II, the Arab League decided to mount an offensive against the Jews. They were going to eradicate the European Jews from the Holy Land because they were not Jews, they were not Palestinian. They were Europeans. So, as the British retreat, the League of Arab nations invade what is now Israel. Israel and the handful of British troops and French troops that are there fend off the League of Arab military nations. They're able to hold them off and repel them through the course of World War II. And remember, that area Saw a lot of German troops go through there, Italian, British, French, some Russian, and yes, American. And as the United Nations actually comes to power after the defeat of Germany and Japan, the United Nations is formed. And since there was a significant population of European Jews in the Holy Land, the United Nations finally, what is the word? Confirmed a Zionist dream of creating a new Jerusalem, a new Israel. Israel was formed, placed back under British and Allied protection. And in doing so, the partition was still there. But instead of it being under British control, it was under Israeli control. That is when the West Bank, Golan Heights, and the Gaza Strip was placed under the care of the Jewish people. And right after that, it didn't take more than a couple years. World War II ends. It just so happens, 1947. The Arab League, after many of the Allied forces have been, vacated and returned home to other bases, the attacks begin again, all to exterminate or kick out the Western Jews from the Holy Land, Palestine. It's a fight that's been going on for more than 2,000 years. But the biggest fight is not the fact that they are Jewish. It's more of a fact that, to me, my opinion, that they're Western. They're Westerners. Western values, not traditional Arabic values or traditional Jewish values. And it's a fight that's been going on, like I said, 2,000 years. So who really started it and why? It's just the fact that the fight between the Jews and the Philistines has been happening since all of recorded history. They've always hated each other. But we are talking about the traditionalists, the original Jews that have settled there in Israel and Judea, or Judah, and the Philistines to the southwest. If you look at a current map now, how it kind of still resembles one of the old maps, the original one. Way down in the southwest corner where you have the Gaza Strip, it's the land of the Philistines. That is why that belongs to the Palestinians. Also, if you look at the West Bank, it is also part of the Philistines. And that is why Israel is cut in two like that, or Palestine is cut in two that way. So when it comes down to it, it's their own fault. Small Arab nations that were there prior to, where we're at today, when they first won their freedom from the Ottomans, they sold their land to the immigrants coming in, staying in that area. And the reason they're doing it is because ideology, religion, being raised on hate, to hate an ancient enemy from over 2,000 years ago. For what? Power. That's what it's always about. When you take the power from the oppressed, they're oppressed. When you provide power to the oppressed, they become the oppressor. But who really is the oppressor in this case? Israel is certainly not innocent for what they're doing, especially not Palestine. When you look at the Palestinians and the actions that happened this week, it was Hamas. Hamas did this, not the people of Palestine. Well, that's where you're partially wrong, but partially right. You have to understand that Hamas is the government of Palestine. They are in control. Hamas was actually voted into power by the Palestinian people. They're an extremist group, hell-bent on wiping Israel off the map. So whose fault is it this week? Is it just Hezbollah's? Is it Israel seeking retribution? Is it a 2,000 plus year old grudge that each side has for each other? For what? Ideology. Ideology. It's too bad because, a lot of people have been killed. A lot of innocent people have been killed. Innocent Jews and innocent Palestinians who want nothing to do with it. So that's where we get to. You look at Hamas, formed in 1987, with the sole intent on killing all the Zionists. Many of the Palestinians are asking for a two-state solution. 100 years ago, a two-state solution was offered, and the Palestinians rejected it. Today, they have Hamas as their governing body. Now, what's sad is that Hamas places their military materials in residential areas, hospitals, schools, and do it purposely. So when they do launch an attack into Israel at some point, into Jerusalem or from Gaza into some of the settlements, they know where, the IDF knows where they're at, and they return fire and they, respond in kind. And it's done purposely so that when the media is out there and the cameras are on, they can show you, look what the IDF has done. They're killing innocent civilians. They're innocent to a point. A lot of them can't get away from where they're at. And a lot of them have no choice because they're held at gunpoint. So what's going to happen is when Israel responds, yes, it is unfortunate. People are going to die. So it comes to it. It is the Palestinians that are at fault here. You gave haven to a terrorist organization. You gave them control of your government. You're to the point now where you're trying to say that you're in an open-air prison. Well, if you're a prisoner, this is going to come off as harsh. But if you're a prisoner in an open-air prison and you escape, and the first thing that you do is rape someone, kill someone, sounds like someone who belongs in jail. That's my take. So, yeah, that's Israel and Palestine in a nutshell. So remember, before you pick a side, understand what the sides are fighting for, their reasoning, who the victims really are, and what they stand for. You get to a point where you just, as a nation or as a people, whichever side you're on, how you're treated, you get to the point you break. You can't take it anymore. And you do. You fight back. And it's how you fight back. It's what's important. And if you really look at it, like I said, the land of Palestine isn't just the land of the Philistines. It's Lebanon, Israel, Judah, and all the small surrounding Arabic kingdoms when Hadrian was in control of Rome. They're killing their own people. And we see over there that this is a grudge that's been going on for over 2,000 years. And there's nothing any of us here in the West can do to stop it. And what makes it sad is we're on the verge of potentially seeing another genocide. And it could happen to the wrong people, by the wrong people. Pay attention to what's out there, kids. It's not what you see on TV. You should have paid attention in your history classes. Do some research. Open your eyes. See the truth, not the body counts on TV. Find out why and how long. Check out all the links I have below. So on that, I am going to finally cut it off. I'm sorry. So yes, I'm going to get going here. Hope you got something out of this. And I do have some new Amazon links below, some items that I hope you guys could use. Definitely for your technology, like your phones and stuff like that. It's a good product. I use it all myself. So check it out. And I'm gonna get going. I did this on my day off today, and remember, vote angry. We'll see what we get next week. And good night. Remember, I love you, and stay safe out there. Good night.